Hello my friends, Amy Esther here, and in today's video we're talking about not the funnest subject, but we need to talk about it. I get lots of questions about this, and if you guys have been following along on my journey recently, I have been suffering from what I think is postpartum anxiety, but I'm having a lot of night anxiety, particularly where I'm not sleeping, and it's just been a mess. But I have found some things that have been helping me, and so we need to talk about anxiety. Today's video, though, we are going to focus on what is anxiety and how do you know if it's normal worry that life is hard and there's craziness in the world and just normal life worry versus actually having anxiety disorder. What is the difference there? So we're going to just talk all about anxiety today. If it's your first time here, I'm Amy Esther and I have several chronic illnesses, and I make videos about my life with chronic illness. And I focused for a long time on my channel about the physical health, even though mental health is such a big part of living with chronic illness. Whether it's you have mental illness and that is your chronic illness, or you deal with physical pain that gives you anxiety and depression and brings on these mental disorders along with the physical pain. Or the other way around, where you have anxiety and depression or other disorders that cause you mental problems and then in turn bring you physical symptoms. So either way, you are in the right place. I'm here to take care of you. I'm an expert about living with chronic illness. I live with it every day. So that is why I create these videos here on YouTube. But today we are specifically talking about anxiety. So first of all, what is anxiety? If you look up anxiety in the dictionary, it probably says it's feeling worried, nervous, or uneasy. Those kind of words are typically what people use when they are talking about anxiety. And a lot of people will throw the word anxiety around, not realizing that there's normal life anxiety and then there's anxiety disorder. And those two are different. So there is normal worry and fear and all of those things that every human being experiences, but some of us have an excess of that. When you have excessive fear, excessive worry that interrupts your day-to-day life and you're having trouble sleeping and eating and living just normal life things, that's when you might want to start looking into an anxiety disorder. So there are a few types of anxiety disorders, and first of all, let me just put a disclaimer out there. I am not a doctor, I'm not a psychiatrist, I am not a professional in that world, but I am just a woman who suffers from chronic illness and from some mental illness as well. And so I'm just sharing my information, my story, and anything that I share is things that I have found to be helpful or interesting that from my life, or things that I have researched and learned about. But again, anything that you hear in this video, make sure you talk to a doctor, talk to a psychiatrist, or someone who is trained in this if you want more specific information. This video is just meant to bring you support and information. So there may be other anxiety disorders that I don't list here, but these are the main ones. So the first one is generalized anxiety disorder, and that is just what you would guess, general anxiety. It's just chronic anxiety, chronic feelings of worry and fear and unwanted thoughts about worrying about your life. The next one would be OCD, obsessive compulsive disorder. And this, I think when I hear this word, I immediately think of Monk, if you guys have seen that show, where he has very severe OCD and touches every light pole that he sees. He has to wash his hands 900 times a day. He won't shake hands with people. And he's so OCD that it doesn't only interrupt his life, but it interrupts people's lives around him, right? And we think of it as this extreme thing. And does that happen? Yes, it does. And maybe you're suffering from that. Maybe you're suffering from an extreme case. But there are many people out there who have a much more mild case than the classic TV version of OCD. And OCD is really just compulsive behaviors where you can't stop thinking about the thing and you think that doing it again will stop you thinking that way, but then your brain just comes back and comes back again. So there are lots of different examples of compulsive things, whether it's compulsive shopping, compulsive social media or phone use, looking at safety things like locking doors and washing hands, and maybe it's cleaning. You are obsessive about cleaning your house and you always feel like you have to be cleaning. Maybe it's checking on your bank accounts. You just feel like if you're not checking on your bank accounts multiple times a day, that something's going to happen. So anytime you have those compulsive behaviors, that would be more of an OCD anxiety disorder. So the next one is social anxiety. And I think this is really common, especially in the younger generation with the use of cell phones and social media these days. There's a lot of social anxiety because kids don't know how to talk to each other anymore. I mean, adults don't know how to talk to each other anymore. And so social anxiety is the anxiety of social situations. It might be specific where you are nervous to eat around people or drink around people. Maybe it's speaking in front of people, whether a small group or a big group. You just are really nervous about speaking or talking in front of people, or it could just be general social anxiety where you're just kind of worried about everything when it comes to social interactions. So I think social anxiety is becoming so common, and it breaks my heart, especially for this next generation that doesn't really know how to communicate with each other, which is going to just bring more anxiety, more social anxiety, more people being nervous to talk to each other and get out there and do things. It's a hard one. So the next one is panic disorder. And from my understanding of panic disorder, it's random, unexpected, and repetitive episodes of intense fear, and usually involves some physical symptoms like heart palpitations, maybe some GI symptoms, nausea, or vomiting, or short of breath, insomnia, those types of things. But it's really intense and kind of out of nowhere. So from the research that I've done, it would be considered a panic disorder if you're having a panic attack at least once a month. So if you are having lots of panic attacks, then your anxiety might be more of a panic disorder rather than a generalized anxiety. The next one is PTSD, post-traumatic stress disorder. So when I hear this, I always think of people in the military coming home and having nightmares and just all this trauma from their experience in war. And that's kind of like the classic PTSD that we think of. But PTSD can come from any traumatic event. It could come from this pandemic. It could come from an accident you've been in, or a natural disaster, or something that someone else did to you or said to you, or just anything that was a traumatic experience for you. And I personally, as I've been working with a counselor, he thinks that I am experiencing some PTSD with some of my past. And I never would have thought that, just because I always thought if I haven't been in a war, I can't have PTSD, right? But any kind of traumatic event that you've been through could cause PTSD. And I think it's really important to notice when it's PTSD, because it can kind of help you find a reason for certain things that are causing you anxiety, because it might be linked to whatever traumatic event that you had gone through. The last one I want to talk about real quick is separation anxiety. And this one, I hear this a lot about toddlers and having separation anxiety with their parents, but this can happen to anyone. Whether it's separation anxiety from a person, like a spouse or a parent or something like that, or it could be separation anxiety from your home. Like, there are many people who are just scared to leave their home. And I think after this pandemic, that is going to get much worse, because people are going to be nervous, as they should be, to be out in the world with all the germs and things out there after a huge pandemic like this. And I have a feeling that all of these anxiety disorders are just going to be vamping up over the next few years. So there may be more anxiety disorders that I didn't mention, that I don't know about, and I could have given you some misinformation. So make sure you check with your doctor on anything that we talk about today. And I cannot diagnose you with anything. I am just here sharing information. So if you think you have one of these disorders, make sure you talk to a psychiatrist or your doctor so that you can get the help you need. But if you're still unsure and you're thinking, well, I can't tell if it's just this pandemic that we're going through or if I have anxiety, one of these disorders that we just talked about. And so I want to talk about a few things to think about to maybe help you work through whether or not this is normal worry or it is an anxiety disorder. So the first thing to think about is it interfering with your day-to-day life? Is it making it so you can't sleep or you can't eat or you can't interact with people like you used to? Is it changing the way that you live your life in a drastic way? So not just, hey, we're in a pandemic, so we're not going out anymore, but I'm terrified to go out. I can't even think about going out, or I think about it too much. I'm always thinking about what's going to happen if I go out of the house. Do you have an inability to get rid of this worry? Do things that used to distract you not distract you anymore? Is it to the point where you can't get it off your mind? You have an inability to cut out the worry from your mind. I know for me, I realized that I had a problem when the things that normally brought me joy, the things that normally got my mind off stresses of life, weren't doing that anymore. And if I was watching a movie, or I was thinking about work, or I was taking a shower, I was still having these thoughts of anxiety. It was just like I couldn't get my mind to stop thinking about it. Another thing is to look for compulsive behaviors. So just even with generalized anxiety disorder, a lot of the times compulsive behaviors go along with it. When they're a little more extreme, that's when it would be considered more of an OCD disorder. But even generalized anxiety disorders, look for some compulsive behaviors. For me, it was my phone. I switched to a dumb phone, which I think everyone should have. It's beautiful and it has helped my anxiety so much. I will link the one that I have down below because it's been absolutely life-changing. But my smartphone was causing me so much anxiety, and I noticed that I was super compulsive about my smartphone. I would do these social media fasts, but then I would still feel like I had to check my phone all the time. I still just felt like if I didn't have it next to me, there was a problem. And I would compulsively be looking at my phone, checking it, even though there was nothing on there, and everything that I looked at just made me feel worse about myself. And so to me, as someone with anxiety and compulsive behaviors like this, I just cut those things out of my life. So if I notice myself doing a compulsive behavior and I can cut it out of my life, then I do. So I did cut out my phone, and it has made such a big difference. And now I'm just being very aware of the compulsive behaviors that I have. But that is definitely a sign of anxiety if you do feel those compulsive behaviors towards pretty much anything. Everyone's going to be different. Another sign that it's more likely anxiety versus worry is being hypervigilant and having increased alertness. So once it goes past that point of keeping yourself safe and keeping your family safe, but if it becomes more of an obsession, that's when you want to look towards anxiety. You might also have some physical symptoms such as heart palpitations, nausea, stomach issues, headaches, insomnia, sweating or trembling. I have talked to a lot of people who didn't know they had anxiety, but they thought they were just chronically ill and chronically in pain. And it turns out they were having anxiety that was causing these physical symptoms. So make sure, especially if you're here because you watch my channel and you live with chronic pain and chronic fatigue and chronic illness, check into anxiety. Make sure that's not contributing to your chronic illnesses and making your physical pain worse. And then the main thing to look for is, are these feelings and thoughts and worry and all the things going through your mind, are they lasting longer than they should? Is it that normally, you feel stressed because of what's going on around you, but now you're just chronically stressed. You can't get your mind off it. Is it lasting months when it used to just last a couple of days? And even if you think it is just stress and not an anxiety disorder, there is no shame in getting help. I think seeing a counselor or some kind of talk therapy can be huge for anyone. So if this is interfering with your life, get some help. My video that is next coming out will be about how to manage anxiety. So make sure you watch that video, subscribe to my channel, turn on the bell so that you don't miss when that video comes out. And if you've listened to this video and you think you may have anxiety, again, talk to a therapist or your doctor because they're the ones who will actually diagnose you with it. I cannot diagnose you. I am not a doctor, but I'm just here to share this information. So I hope that was helpful for you. If you are suffering from anxiety, could you let me know in the comments below, what is the hardest thing for you? What is the worry that you can't get off your mind? Because I am really struggling with some anxiety myself, and sometimes it's nice to just talk to someone who understands what it feels like. So we're in this together, my friend, and we're gonna walk this hard life hand in hand. So make sure you are subscribed so you don't miss my videos as we talk more about mental health and physical health in this upcoming year. You guys are amazing, and I will see you guys next time.